Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds by nerds, I'm Nerdarchy Dave. Today I'm hanging out with Joe Wetzel from Inkwell Ideas. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
And if you could be so kind to kind of introduce yourself a little bit and tell people a little bit about you and what you do.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm the owner of Inkwell Ideas. About 14, 15 years ago, we created initially Hexographer. That was our first product. And then a couple years after that, we moved on to making these DungeonMorph dice. And then Hexographer became Cityographer and Dungeonographer, and then all of that was encompassed into Worldographer and a whole bunch of other products along the way too.
All the ographers, I see.
Yeah. Well, try to create a product line and try to create a unique name and that sort of thing.
So, what was the impetus to get started? What was the thing that kicked it all off?
So kicking it all off was the dream of being able to do this full time was a bit of it, but with Hexographer, because that was our first product. With that, I was working for a software development company doing a mapping program for the government, and I also loved the classic Mistara style maps, and I'm like, hey, I think I could make a tool that would make it easy for you to create maps in this style if we kind of made the interface, simplified the interface to specialize in making maps in a particular style. And we expand that a little bit for the first edition World of Greyhawk type style and another one as well, but kept the interface basically the same to do all that. And once I had that product out there, I put it out as just a free thing and started getting feedback from people and saying they really liked it and asking for additional features. And so that grew into a paid product once I realized, hey, this is something that's going to take time. And hey, maybe this is a way for me to get to do sort of what I want to do.
Now,
being my own boss, that sort of thing, right?
Awesome. That's the dream, right?
Right.
So,
yeah.
As always, folks, links are in the description to check everything out that we're going to talk about today. And you'd reached out to us because you currently have a Kickstarter going on for it's DungeonMorph Dice, but it's a whole lot more than that.
Oh yeah, it's a lot more than that. This is sort of the 10th anniversary of our DungeonMorph Dice, but it's kind of the 11th. We launched the initial Kickstarter about 11 years ago, and it took the better part of a year to actually get them out to everybody at that time. But DungeonMorph Dice are little dice design. It probably helps if I hold a couple up to a camera, but you got little dungeon designs and cavern designs on dice, and they all have 2 entrances on each edge, so they all can connect to each other. And this is a format that Dice and Logos, I think, is the one who kind of originated this particular idea of how to organize them and link them together. And so at the time, several of us that were doing these designs at the time kind of banded together. I said, hey, let's put them on large 1-inch D6s. And we started doing that. We did that as a Kickstarter. And then we said, hey, well, it would make sense to do, do I have any of the cards handy here? I don't think I have it. Well, we did them as 2.5-inch cards as well in that Kickstarter. And then since then, so we did that first Kickstarter, which was 3 sets of 5 dice each. And then a second Kickstarter a couple years later was cities and villages and a ruined version of those cities. And those were also 5 dice each. And there was a matching card deck of 2.5-inch cards for those as well. Then a couple years after that, we went back to the dungeons and did 2 more dungeons and another cavern set. And this time we did the 2.5-inch cards, but we also made 10-inch battle mat tiles. So they're 10 by 10, and you can lay them all on a tile on a table, and you can put your miniatures on there and all that sort of stuff, as well as a book, because it's always been, the dice are great to design your dungeon before. I watched you guys did a video a couple of days ago on this kind of stuff, but the dice are great, to roll up a few, push them together, and you can plan your dungeon. You know, you can look at that design and be like, yeah, that design works, but I need a secret door there, or I need that to connect to there, or things like that. So you can roll a couple of them and kind of plan out your dungeon and use it kind of as inspiration and look at other charts of monsters and stuff. And then there's other people who will do that on the fly, and that are very good improv DMs that can kind of be like, okay, yeah, I'm making this dungeon and we're raiding a tomb, and I'm going to, that they can kind of, they're great at improv, and so they can do that. Other folks aren't necessarily as good at improv, and so with that the prior Kickstarter, we made a book of kind of scenarios for each of the designs. So you can like look at the design you rolled, and you can go to a page about that, and you can have a page that gives you a scenario that might be who might be there, and what that room might be all about. Hey, there's an altar there, and what might they be worshiping, and what might they be trying to do, and also give you an alternate idea or two in case if that one doesn't work for you. So we're doing that again with this most recent Kickstarter. We're doing another book, but this time we're changing the focus a little bit, where we do some design descriptions of what's in there and what that altar might be about and stuff like that. But also we're kind of doing a solo co-op framework to kind of put on top of whatever game system you're doing, so that if you want to go and explore a tomb in a solo or co-op without a GM way, this will give you some charts that are all, within a few pages, a few charts of what foes you might be putting in there, and a way to kind of generate those foes, like which ones will pop up as you move about, as well as treasures and interesting features of the rooms and things like that.
So basically a solo play aspect.
Yeah, it's been a desire of mine to make the dice and the cards even more useful. Hey, on the one hand, they're great inspiration for designing your dungeon. They're great for improv DMs to run on the fly. What else can we do with them? And using them as and you can take some of the other solo game systems. There's a bunch of good ones out there. I mean, one I like is 4 Against Darkness. There's D100 Dungeon. So they have some elementary dungeon mapping functionality kind of based in there, where you can roll a die and you get, it's like, oh, there's a large room or a small room or long corridor. You get some elementary dungeon mapping. Well, so you could use our dice with those systems to kind of have a little bit more complexity there.
I'm waiting for my opportunity to advertise a solo play game, and it's going to be terrible, because every time I think of it, it's like, do you love RPGs but have no friends? Sometimes it's hard to get a group together there. Sometimes it's hard.
Yeah. I mean, RPGs. I mean, you there's some folks that will want to denigrate RPGs and say, oh, it's for people that don't have a life. That used to be the stigma a while back. And it's like, no, this is a game that requires you almost to have friends.
Yeah. I mean, fortunately, I think we've moved pretty far from the origins as well. We've come out of the basements, although we do film and play in Ted's basement. Well, now we're not in our mom's basements anymore. It's our wives.
Right.
Yeah. So when how many dice are there altogether? Like, if you were to take all the different sets and you're like, I'm going to make one mega dungeon using them all, how many dice is that?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. So the first 2 Kickstarters, each of them was 5 dice each, and they had 3 sets each. So you got 6 sets there, 5 dice each. So that's 30. Then the third Kickstarter, the prior one, we went to 6 dice each, although because we didn't hit a stretch goal, one of them, the 6 die is like a duplicate. So it's now we're adding 5, 6, and 6. So we're at 17 plus the 30. So we're at 47. And then with this Kickstarter currently, better write that down, 47. So currently the Kickstarter started out with these sets being 6 dice each, and I'm big on trying to give people as much value as I can.
Yeah.
And when we're working with the dice manufacturers, we get price breaks. If we order, if we order 400 versus 300 of a die, I get a lower price, and so forth. So I'm like, let me figure out a way to pass that value on to folks. And so we're doing that with the stretch goals. And so we start out at 6 dice, and we've got stretch goals to make them 7, 8, or 9. Currently, 2 of the sets have already made it to the 7th die, and the third one is a couple $1,000s away.
Have you done that yet? Have you taken them all and been like, I'm going to make one big mega dice dungeon?
Well, not with the newest ones. I did do one graphic a couple years ago with the sets that I because I was packaging a bunch of the dice myself, and I'm like, let me just fill out the whole dining room table.
Yeah.
And so I did take a picture of like a 4-foot by 6-foot dining room table, or whatever the size of the dining room table, all with these 1-inch dice. So I mean, you've got 40 dice by 60 dice or something, so you got like 2,400 dice on that one particular picture. So yeah, I guess
you gotta run a con game like that or something, like do like a big tournament or something, I think Frog God Games does it with Arathon. I can't say it, I can never pronounce it, but they have their big mega dungeon, and they printed out 3D printed out one of the levels with 3D terrain. And they set that up at a bunch of conventions, and then people can run through it, and when they die, they get their name added to a list or something.
Yeah, sounds interesting. Yeah, I think I've seen that set up at GaryCon maybe.
That definitely sounds like a place where you might see something like that.
Yeah.
But I imagine with this kind of a product, though, there's a large cross-sectional consumer that you get to reach, because you get the dice fanatics that don't really care what's on the dice, just their dice that they don't have, and then then you have the randomness junkies as well.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, we get people, and so we have a pledge that is, hey, just the dice, just give me all the dice, And so we've got a pledge level for that, but then we've got a pledge level for if you don't want it, because there are other people that are look at it and be like, oh, those dice, that's too tiny. That's too hard for me to read. I'm holding one of these up, looking at it. That's too hard for me to read. I can't really I don't get that. So in those cases, those that we have the cards, whether it's the 2.5-inch cards or the battle mat cards, and then the book. If you want ideas to run games using these random designs and kind of feed that improv, say if you're not the best improv DM, you pull out that book and you've got something to go on.
I mean, and even we're using them in conjunction. Like if you're rolling the dice either while you're playing or before the session, but then you have the cards correspond to the dice faces, right?
Right. So I mean, ideally, and this is the way that I'll use it in person, is I'll roll the dice on behind the GM screen myself, and then I'll find the matching card and smack that down on the table, and then the players can move their minis about that area. Yeah. So you use both together.
Is this a style of play that you've always enjoyed, or did you kind of fall into it after you kind of came up with the idea for the product?
I think that I think I've always done something, because we had the DungeonMorph books back in the day, right? It's like, oh, okay, and you had a bunch of maps, you didn't really have anything to go on there, right? So you could pull out the map, and it's like, what am I going to put there? Yeah. So I think that it's something, on the other hand, I mean, I've done traditional modules too, so it runs the gamut. It's just whatever you're in the mood for.
I just find sometimes when you're doing a thing, it starts to consume, the rest of your life. Like you're always testing and figuring it out. So then it's definitely going to be inflicted upon your group at some point.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I mean, that's what our group, the past, most of the past 4 months, our group has been, trying out this solo co-op framework of, how can we, make sure that this is working well. And we've gone through several iterations of that, and I got to thank my writer, Andrew Shields is doing a lot of the writing behind that, a lot of the design behind that. And so we we together have been playing that. He and I and Keith Curtis, one of the cartographers on the project, we're playing that, in our weekly game, going through and trying it out. We've tried it with, also doing our own D6 based system, and tried that a couple of different ways, and it didn't really come together. And it was something where, so we pulled that out and we just said, okay, we're going to make a framework that, because to me, going back to what we were saying with these solo games like Four Against Darkness, D100 Dungeon, Ironsworn, is out as well. Although that's got a bit more of a story focus to it. But these other games, looking at them, it just didn't have quite enough complexity to me. So I was like, well, how can I add a little bit more complexity to it? And so I'd add a little bit more complexity to it. And then it was working for me, and I think it was working for the other guys as well in that case. Although we did have a prior iteration that kind of fell apart, but it was working for me. But then I was like, well, I'm trying to make a simple system that makes it easy for you to manage multiple characters if you're doing something solo, and the monsters.
Yeah.
But then it became, well, but if you're really knowledgeable about a particular game system, maybe that's the best thing for you to use, not try to learn something new, even if it's designed to be simple. If you're really good at 5e, well, okay, just go with that. If you're really knowledgeable about Hero or whatever the case might be, okay, use that.
So that leads me right into my next question, which you've kind of answered, and that is the adventure elements are system agnostic.
Oh yeah. So we're keeping everything system agnostic, so that you can put. So there's kind of the book is split up into kind of two main sections, kind of three. One is descriptions of the designs of telling you kind of ideas of what might that altar be about, or what might the frescoes, what kind of scenery might there be in those rooms. Then there's the solo framework, just describing the framework and how to make your own if you want to accomplish something, a way to explore some dungeons and in a solo or co-op way. And then there's a couple of specific scenarios that kind of use that framework and say, hey, we want to go and we want to raid a tomb. And so here's a list of foes and features of the rooms and treasures and traps that might be there, versus, oh, we're going into this, because the new Kickstarter is sewers, lairs, and crypts. So it might be, okay, we're going into the sewers, and here's a cult of ooze worshippers, and this is what foes you might come across there, and what treasures they might have, and so forth.
I don't know if it's too specific, but have you guys done like a labyrinth set?
Not a set. We on the prior dungeon sets, each of the prior dungeon sets have had a labyrinth design in each of the sets. So if you wanted to, you could pull out the multiple sets and you could put together. Now there'd be 4 different dice that have a labyrinth on them specifically. Yeah.
Cool. So how many games are you playing in now?
Now it's just our core group, just the one at the moment, hoping that as things get more open, we'll be able to get out and play more often. But right now it's 1 a week.
Do you usually hit conventions?
So right now we're doing Origins next month. We'll be there for that. We'll also be at PAX Unplugged in December. In prior years, we had done GaryCon. Right now, just life being the way it is, teenagers. Yeah. I can't get out to more than 2 conventions a year, but in a few years, I'm hopeful, knock on wood, I'll be able to get out to a few more.
Well, when you hit PAX Unplugged, I'll have to look you up, grab a beer together or something.
Sure. Yep.
That's kind of our local con right now. So
okay, all right.
We feel.
It's a good. It's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun there. For me, it's only a 2 or 3 hour drive, so that's one of the reasons why I like it.
Oh, you're local, essentially. We're just on the other side of the bridge in South Jersey.
Okay.
So for us, we feel morally obligated to attend that one because it's so close.
Yeah.
Also, I also feel like It's the best food con. You have the best food selection
Oh God.
of all the cons, and also it's like you could pay like 5-star prices or 1-star prices, whatever you want to. It's all there.
We went over to the market one morning for breakfast before the exhibit hall opened up, and there was a great donut place, but my God, the sugar! I think I might have gotten diabetes that day.
Yeah.
You probably know which one. I can't think of the name, but you probably know what I'm thinking about.
Yeah. Anyway. Actually, I tend to hit places outside of the market just because it's so crowded in there. It's just like it's too much.
Well, as a visitor, I think you have to go there at least for one meal over there.
But that's what I mean. Just in there alone, there's so many places that you many choices.
I will say, as a warning to folks, they close at 6, the market.
Yeah.
So for all of us working the exhibit hall, we're out of luck,
Yeah.
So like I said, we went over there for breakfast one day, and then we're not able to go there after that.
You're right there in Chinatown too, so there's like plenty of like restaurants there, especially if you like Chinese food or sushi or any kind of Asian cuisine. You have plenty of choices, and you don't actually have to go very far to find other stuff either.
Right.
I know the one year that we all went, and and Doug came in from Ohio, and he's like, and we went and got sushi, and he's like, this is the best sushi I ever had, and like, so like Gen Con's okay, but I feel like a decent restaurant there is like the price of a really good restaurant here.
Okay. I didn't. I mean, we used to do Gen Con. We picked up Origins instead, just because it's an extra few hours for me, and I just found that stressful for some reason.
Yeah.
So we picked up Origins instead. But we used to do Gen Con, and had a lot of fun. I mean, for there, if you wanted cheap, you had the mall food court right across the way from the convention hall.
Yeah, I think so. Origins for us is like, I think that was like I want to say like an 8-hour drive, and Gen Con is like 10-11 hours.
Right.
And those extra couple hours do wear on you.
Yeah.
So, cool. We look forward to hanging out with you at PAX Unplugged.
Sure. Yeah. We'll be there. We've got our booth number already. We've got a double booth on an end, so we'll hopefully be pretty visible.
Nice. Do you guys just booth, or do you run games or anything?
Just booth right now. We just don't have the size maybe to kind of run things as well.
Yeah. If you expand, you have to have room to have the section where you can run. I've seen other booths where they run games right in their booth.
Yeah.
They have a small table so that people can see the random dice in action.
Yeah, it's also a function of how many people can you bring, and us being a smaller company, and so it's just a little bit hard. And COVID, as COVID relaxes, maybe we'll be able to bring more people too.
Yeah, totally. Most of my convention questions I kind of frame in the before times mindset anyway.
Yeah.
Have you been back to any cons yet?
So we did do Origins and PAX Unplugged last year.
Okay.
So we've done those.
PAX Unplugged, they did a really good job of how they spaced everything out. I was really happy with that, because last year I had done Gen Con and PAX Unplugged. Gen Con, not so impressed with. They had the same amount of space, and they just squished it together. So
I thought, didn't I see pictures where a lot of exhibitors, it was kind of the first convention to really try things after things were opening up.
Yeah.
So a lot of exhibitors backed out, and it seemed like the room was really, there was a lot of extra space.
There was.
I wasn't there.
There was. But what they did is they curtained off a lot of that extra space.
Okay.
Instead of spreading it out. And they did have a lot of vendors that backed out. And I know a lot of people that got in kind of last minute because of that. But where at PAX Unplugged, you would go 1, 2, maybe 3 booths, and then it was open space, and the aisles were wider.
Right.
Like, you know, PAX Unplugged was the first convention this past year that you're not like you're not like bumping into people, and you know, you don't feel like a ping pong ball, where it felt like
Gen Con is wall to wall people at times.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, but so Gen Con could have been the same way had they just used the space better. So I don't know, you know, but like you said, they're like one of the first ones. I don't know if they're afraid of like the you know, the visual aspect of it being spread out and not, you know, not feeling as busy. But I think at that point, a lot of us might have appreciated that.
Yeah, a lot of. I mean, hindsight is 2020, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it was open and there was a lot of extra space, you know, people could have had the opinion, that hey, this is good that everything is spread out, not so much as, oh, this is being so poorly attended, you know.
Yeah.
Right. So
what are you gonna do? So your weekly group, you guys play D&D, you play something else, switch it up?
So we probably 1/3 D&D, 1/3 experimenting with a couple of the systems that we had done. And then Andrew Shields, like I said, who's doing a lot of the writing for us, occasionally will spring out some other old school systems. He picked up, if you remember, there was a sort of failed Kickstarter, Axes and Anvils, that Mike Nistel had done years and years back. And Andrew picked up the rights to kind of complete that. So Andrew put out, finished creating the game system based on Mike's initial notes. He's got a forward in the book, so you should really go to that for understanding how much of the original system that Mike had spelled out is there versus how much is what Andrew had come up with. But he finished that up and then provided the PDFs to everybody. As far as the people who back for the physical books, I don't know but Andrew did his best to give everybody as much as he could give them, being somebody who was started out as just a fan, a backer of the project, and wanted to get everybody something. So we play some systems that he's done as well.
Cool. When you say your own systems, is it stuff you guys have published or stuff that you may publish?
So like I said, I mean, when we had done the planning for this current Kickstarter with the solo co-op stuff, we had wanted to do a simplified D6 system because the dice are, the DungeonMorph dice are D6s. Yeah. So we wanted to do a simplified, kind of the old Star Wars system, take that and change it up from being a dice pool as far as counting up all these numbers to a success-based kind of thing, where if you got 5 or 6s, you count up successes and kind of do something like that. And for whatever reason, it just wasn't quite working for us. It didn't quite get what I wanted. So then we kind of moved to another variation, kind of more Traveler-esque, where it's just 2d6 and you're adding kind of a skill bonus and against a challenge rating essentially or something. So we were experimenting with that. I'm not sure, and that was when I came to the realization where, well, instead of providing our own system, which I probably still want to get back to that. We probably still want to do something with that, but at least for now with this, to just say, use the system that you're comfortable with. That's going to be the system maybe that's just as simple as whatever we would come up with. So
I totally get that. I mean, for years we were kind of like anti building our own system. Because I mean, there's just so many good systems out there. There's so many generic systems out there that you can kind of tailor to what you need. It wasn't until like more recently that we had a conversation after a game or one of our team meetings, and someone misheard somebody say something, and they're like, I know you didn't say Zoo Mafia, but that was what I heard. And I was like, you know what? I would totally play that game. And so we commissioned a couple pieces of art, concept art, and and then started putting together a rule set, and we've played 2 sessions on the channel so far. We're doing some design diaries over on the channel as well, for people to check out. But I feel like you got to have it like in you, and there's got to be some kind of like spark in order to do it. It's like I've talked to people who want to create their own systems, and I'm like, well, why did you do this? And they're like, I wanted it to be different. And I'm like, well, that's not really a good answer. But I love hearing when people are like, well, here's a problem I had, and I wanted to try and solve it, and nothing was quite doing that.
Right.
Right. In our case, we're like, oh, this is a setting we want to explore. And so we want to codify.
That can drive mechanics. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So to be honest, we're not even doing that. We're hacking an existing system in order to make it, right? We're looking at Powered by Apocalypse, and that's what we're play testing. Which also, like, since we're already doing that, I'm like, well, I also want to game design because I like that, right? And so, it's a hack of that, and we've taken inspiration from some other games that we played that we really like, and are mashing it together. Because also, we wanted the idea of like these cute and cuddly zoo animals that is also kind of brutal. So,
are you so Zoo Mafia?
Yeah, Zoo Mafia.
Okay. I just last night was watching the Offer, which is the behind the scene, the TV series that's behind the scenes of how The Godfather was made.
Okay.
So maybe there's some inspiration there.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. So we're definitely not really going to be authentic. We're going for more of we want it to feel like the thing, than be like it has to be 100% accurate.
Oh yeah, no, I especially once you bring a fantastical element into it.
Yeah. And then so there's the underlying thing going on at the zoo as well, where it's like you're trying to, the premise is it's the start of a mob war between 3 different factions, but in the meantime, also you can't let the humans know that the animals are they're more than just animals. So
yeah.
So we've been having fun with that. So is the idea, like, for the system that you guys have been tinkering with, is it just that you want to create a simple system, or you a solo play?
Yeah. So it's my premise in originally creating the system is that if you're going to be doing solo or even co-op, but especially if you're doing solo, and you want to run 4, 5, or 6 characters plus the foes, that's a lot of overhead. And if you're going to play a crunchy game system, you better know that really, really well to manage those 4, 5, or 6 characters and the foes. And so I was looking at how do I do something that's simpler but still gives the characters some uniqueness, like For Against Darkness. I'm going from memory from the last time I looked at it a month or 2 ago, but For Against Darkness is you've got a few classes to pick from, and if you're a fighter, you get to add your level to all of your attacks. If you're a cleric, you get a healing thing, and you get to add half your level to your attacks. And if you're a magic user, you've got a list of 6 spells, but you don't get to add anything to your attacks, for example. So it's like, that's a good premise, but I still want a little bit more than that. I want, I want to have a barbarian that has some sort of rage type thing. I want a paladin that has a little bit more. So I just want a little bit more of an ability or a feat type thing added in there to make those characters all unique, but try to avoid the bloat of going too big. So that's what the primary design consideration was, and to make sure that we use D6s because that's what the DungeonMorph dice are, and that's what the thing would go with.
DM Scotty, he's got a system he calls his the simple D6 system. I don't think he's published it. He really should. But literally, like, we played it once, and he's like, here's an index card. Write these things down, and then you can throw away the index card. Like, it was really that simple. Mm-hmm. And like the idea was like your class would give you like a particular ability, and so you had like one ability to really remember, and you were just going to roll a d6 every time. But like there was definitely a difference between playing the fighter and the paladin, or the cleric, or a wizard.
Yeah, and that sounds like a lot, because I was trying to front load the work on, basically you're just picking a class template, and you could, so you had 4 ability scores, and each of them had 4 skills, and so you would pick a template which basically spelled out what you want. Now you could change it up if you wanted to move a point from here to there. You could do that if you wanted to, but you're basically just picking a class template, and it can all fit. Your character can fit on half an index card, for that matter.
Yeah.
And so that's where I was going. It's just, I was worried that the complexity, once I was adding in spells, I was getting a little bit worried. Well, how many spells do I add in? And now, if I add in 10 spells for you to pick between, okay, now is that too much overhead? That's kind of where I left off.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. What kind of, like, if you're not playing a D&D style game, what is your preference?
But I like a lot of Fate, because I like that whole, I can invent something about the room to give me some sort of a bonus, or I can make some sort of detraction. I like a little bit of story into the game. I like the ability for the characters, for the players, to really, drive that setting a little bit, drive what happens to a degree. So I think I do like that. But I mean, I've done it. I did a lot of Champions. So a very crunchy, very numbers game. It's what can you find people to play sometimes, right? What can you get the collaborative interest in?
That is the one of the things. That's like one of the reasons why D&D is like the elephant in the room right now. Just like, we did a video of, like, here are 3 games that are easier for beginners than D&D, and there are way more than 3. So
right. But then it becomes, well, but if 3 of the 5 people are playing no D&D,
yes,
well, maybe that's that might still be easiest than another system that's easier by itself.
Right, because no one's heard of the other systems, right?
Right.
But we're at the point now where even people that don't play D&D have heard of D&D, and even if it's not right, they still have some kind of idea of what it is.
Right.
But
who plays D&D totally by the rules anyway, right?
True. I mean, the earliest editions weren't even playable by the rules. So.
Right. Yeah.
So we all had to, like, figure that stuff out and do some designing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, how far back do you go with that then?
So I started with a D&D.
Okay.
So first edition.
Yeah.
And, like, I guess, like, my first books were the second printing of the first edition, where my GM had the first printing, and he was, I guess at that time he was like 18, like 17 to 19 range, and we were, like, all younger. We were, like, I want to say tweens, early teens.
Same here. I mean, actually, I might have been. Yeah, we had one guy who was 4 years older, and another guy who was 2 years older than me, and then myself and my brother, and so.
That's how you found players back in the day. You, like, would find kids that are much younger than you that thought you were cool because you were much older than them, and you get them to play.
Could be. Yeah, I did Red Box at first, and then went to the advanced with those same covers. I like those covers better. I don't know, maybe that's sacrilege, but I like the Dungeon Master opening the big doors on the Dungeon Master's Guide or whatever.
I love the Player's Handbook cover as well. Like my first I want to say, like, quite a few years before that, I was exposed to RPGs. And, like, my neighbor came over with the red box, and we never really played, but I remember opening the box and pulling out the books and the dice. And then we ended up going to, like, and again, he was a couple years older than me, and we ended up going to, one of the neighbors down the street, and which was even older than him. And we played, like, 1 or maybe 2 sessions of Gamma World.
Okay.
And then I wouldn't touch any RPGs for years after that. But that was like kind of my first exposure to games. And then like, there was one of the girls in the neighborhood was the same age as us, grew up with us, and it was her older brother. But he would come and play like backyard sports with us. And it was like in the summertime, one time after we had just gotten done playing like wiffle ball or run the bases or something. Mm-hmm. And he was like, "Hey, do you want to check out this game?" And I vaguely knew what he was talking about from having been exposed to it. And then, and from there, like that summer, we played like everything. Everyone would show up with a different game like every week, and we'd make characters and maybe play a session of
it. Well, yeah, I really wanted to play more when I was a kid, but the two kids that were older than me, they had more studies going on, so sometimes we'd only be playing, I'd be begging to play, and sometimes it'd take 2 or 3 weeks for us to play again. And here I want to play, I wanted to play Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but we're only able to play once because one of them is studying engineering at college, a few years later or whatever.
Yeah, like we would always be bugging my one friend's neighbors, because that's where the kid lived at, banging Steve around. And then and he was my first GM, and he was fantastic. And fortunately, like we actually did get to play a lot. And so I would play like through my teens for a while, then stop, and then pick it back up in my early 20s, and then kind of just like kept playing from there on out. Have you played like the whole time? Did you have any breaks?
No, I've been fortunate. I've moved around a bit, but when I was in, all the way through high school, I had a group of friends from the street, and because of age difference as well as public school, private school kind of thing, they were kind of more private school, and then I had friends from school from my grade, so I had kind of two groups going on through high school. Went to college and found a group there and played through college. After college, moved to another city, found a group at the game store and played there. Then moved to another city, found another group of people, moved to a third. So I've been fortunate that I've always been able to find people and play in groups.
Yeah, I kind of like fell off for a while in my later teen years. I had a couple of dips where I tried to get other people to play, and it wasn't quite successful. And it wasn't until like my early 20s, like, and then like I had been dating Ted's sister, and he's a couple years younger, so like we got him and one of the guys I grew up with, and my youngest brother. And from that, like we started up, what would kind of be like our Saturday night game, and in some incarnation or another, that's basically going on for the past, I don't know, probably like close to 25 years.
See, that's amazing. Like I said, for me, I was bouncing from group to group every 3 or 4 years.
Well, I mean, the group has changed configuration a lot over that time, and sometimes as little as 3 or 4 of us to as many as 14 of us, and it's not like we just played one campaign for that time. We have stopped and started more campaigns than probably some people ever even play. We never took a game from 1 till 20. Until we start at 5e.
Okay.
And like I think the thing that worked for us was like, even now, like we'll play like 3 Saturdays out of the month generally, but there's still like 3 different groups. There's some crossover in those groups, but it's like me and Ted, and then 3 other and then 3 groups that 2 are D&D games. And 1 is like something else we try and play, and they're only monthly games. So
okay, okay. So you got 3 monthly games going on. Not the same game every or most weeks of a month.
yeah, and even then, like, so for a long time that's what we used to do. But what we found was, like, it gets harder and harder to get people to stay committed to it. Life happens, people, busy schedules, and it's like you're looking at your schedule and going, now you're married, kids, jobs, kids' activities. You're like, what, where do I have room to, to move something? And you're like, well, this 4-hour block, or more is easy to cut off and gain a lot of time if you need to do other things.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking a little beforehand, and now, at least my life, outside of the school day, then I become a taxi for my kids. So I'm taking one-to-one activity, picking up another one from another activity. So but I'm probably not the first. I'm sure I'm not the first person who's like, yeah, I can't wait to go to a retirement home and found a group there for everybody who's gonna be there. It's like, yeah, we got nothing else to do all day. Let's go ahead and play all day. I want to found a retirement home specifically for retired gamers.
You're not the first person that I hear say that. Yeah. Like, I feel like that might be fertile grounds for if you're looking to start a group that's going to be consistent.
True. Yeah.
I mean, some of them may, not remember every week, but
right. Well, the adventure's all new to them.
Yeah. Wasn't there like someone did like I don't know if it was just a video or an article where they played with like senior citizens a couple years back that was like circulating.
Okay.
But even doing this, I've met quite a few people that are coming into the hobby brand new, in their 40s, 50s. I've heard of people coming in, 60s, 70s, even later. So, it's really expanding who's playing the game. And like from our personal experiences, a lot of the people we get exposed to are either new gamers or they're people that are coming back after having not really played for 10, 20 years.
Right. Because I mean, maybe I'm hopeful that you get that time back once you're done, once your kids are on their own, and it's like, oh, okay, I can do things for myself again.
Yeah, I mean, my wife just recently got into playing. Well, I say recently, but I guess it's been a couple of years now. Where she plays in 2 of the groups that we play in, and. So she's already played, like, she's played D&D, Shadow of the Demon Lords, what we're playing now. We did The Expanse, we did Monster of the Week. And, like, her concern was going from, playing D&D to something else. I was like, no, it's just going to get easier from here on out, pretty much. I mean, also, like, our group tends to like rules-like games and less complexity, not really into, realism or simulationist style games. And maybe when I was younger, but not so much now. I want something that's going to be able to, like, you can jump in and get people playing fast.
Right. Yeah.
Do any of your kids play?
So no, kind of not. I mean, I think I need to reach out more, a little bit more, give them a little bit more opportunity. They get. The few times we had one game session where we invited some other mutual friends and their kids, and they were having a grand time of it. And we, for completely independent reasons, we just couldn't keep meeting with them. Then when I've tried a couple of times, they just get too scared. Even though, I mean, I guess that was 2 years ago when my kids were like 12 and 14 or 11 and 13 or something.
They're more outgoing then.
Well, they just get scared. We were doing, just Lost Mines, and they get to I forget which module I was using, but they get to this sunken city type thing, and they're looking down, and it's not even scary yet. There's not undead or anything like that going on, but they were really scared. On the other hand, one of my kids, I was playing sort of just a one-on-one kind of thing with her, and doing it very improv, where it's like, just thumb through the monster manual, and this is the monster that we're going to encounter on this roadway. Just totally did it improv, and we had a really great time with it. But haven't been able to. They have so many activities right now. Both
makes it hard. When you say scared, what do you mean by scared? Like scared for their characters?
Just scared in real life, even though we're just sitting in our dining room. I don't know how to explain it, but they were just scared at the time.
You must be a terrifying GM. Yeah, my one kid has no interest whatsoever. And that's like how I got my wife started, because I started trying to play like a family game with them. Mm-hmm. And my daughter, no interest. Like, she was younger, so I tried like I made a character for her that was like based off of like Monster High dolls, because that's like what she was into at the time. And mm-hmm. I was like, I figured she might be into it more, because she still is kind of like into the dolls and stuff. And like the only thing that she seemed to really like was casting spells, because they were on spell cards and she could slap them down like they were Pokemon cards or something, which is also weird because she's never played Pokemon. But and then like the first time with my son, it bounced off of him, and then we started playing with his uncles, and we were playing Mutants and Masterminds, and he could be a purple gorilla from space that flew, and he was sold on it then. Mm-hmm. Then he started playing with us with D&D and some other things, and now he'll occasionally play with some of his other friends, but he's definitely a filthy casual.
Well, I think I can. Their schedules will, one does theater at school, and she's at school all the way to 9 o'clock now every day. And so once things settle down, once they're out of school, there's like a 2-week time window before they go off to various camps that they wanted to go to, and maybe I can give it another try in that window.
So one of the people I had on, they said they started playing D&D because they did a play. I think it's She Kills Monsters.
Okay.
And it's like, I want to say it's about D&D, but I don't think it is about D&D. But like, there's heavy themes of that in there, and that's what like sparked their interest. And so like they're like, well, we should play the game, since we're doing this thing in the play, and they got started that way. So maybe you just need to get your kids into the right play.
Yeah, you're right. I probably need to find like both of them loved and still like Harry Potter, so maybe I need to find a Harry Potter-esque a game, for example, or think of some other interest that they might have in particular and try to figure out.
And sometimes they're just not going to like what you like.
True.
Yeah, I know like another person, they use what I call the top shelf approach. And that was to tell their kids that wasn't for them, it was for adults. And it'd be too hard for them. So that made them want to play more.
Yeah.
And then I know like other people that just have their kids all around all the time while they were playing, and that sparked their interest. And I guess sometimes your kids just aren't going to care about the things you do.
Yeah.
Curse them in their free will.
Well, you can't push it too much, because that they're not. Yeah.
Also, generally hanging out with mom and dad is not particularly cool either.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like with gaming in any sense, like it's just good when people get exposed to it, because even if it doesn't stick now, you never know. Or like, in the instance of your kids, like, maybe they're not interested in gaming with you or now, but like if one of their friends
go to college,
bring it up,
they meet a couple of friends, and it's somebody that they want, some people they want to hang out with, and now they're hooked on it, and then they come back for the summer and they're like, hey Dad, can we? So you never know.
So also like my wife did not get into gaming for, I don't know, we've been together since '93. And it's only been the last couple of years, so there's always hope.
Yeah, you're telling me there's a chance.
There's a chance. Is your wife a nerd or nerd adjacent?
No, 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 not at all. I mean, she did embrace my love of Babylon 5. And when we were dating, we went through, like, we were watching 3 or 4 episodes a night for a while there. But that's probably the closest. I've gotten her to play Settlers of Catan a few times, but that's about all.
Yeah. Well, my wife would play Munchkin sometimes, although she's not a great sport and does not like losing. So,
Munchkin.
which Munchkin is not a good game for that.
Well, you know what might be, if she's afraid of losing and doesn't like backstabbing and stuff, diplomacy, that might work.
Yeah.
No, totally not. Anybody who knows diplomacy knows that ends. That's a sure way to end relationships.
But although but because that used to be like our Christmas tradition, was to play Munchkin Christmas Day.
Okay.
When we'd had all the family over, but we've moved away from Munchkin and into Dungeon Mayhem, which I much prefer to Munchkin. The problem with Munchkin is it's like you get towards the end of the game, someone's about to win, and then everyone murders them, and then it's like you're starting all over again, and the game doesn't end.
Yeah.
So we've moved on to other things like Dungeon Mayhem and what is it? Is it Attack on Tokyo? It's a game where you're giant monsters, kaijus, something Tokyo.
Yeah, I think I have a copy of it, but I can't think of the name either.
Which is that's a lot of fun, because we're getting to the point too where like all the nephews and the niece are like playing games as well.
Mm-hmm.
So and they're starting to get into like D&D and stuff. Like Ted runs what he calls the kids game, and it's the 2 nephews, my niece and other nephews, which are his kids. So they got 4 of them that are like, they're ranging from like, I think they're all like tweens and teens. So bringing up the next generation.
Yeah, well, and there's so much innovation going on. I mean, there's just so much new stuff, and I do this full time, and I can't keep up with everything that's going on, right?
I had to stop backing Kickstarters because I found myself backing way too many Kickstarters that I'm not like, that I wasn't like reading the books or sometimes even forgetting to get them. The eye opener was Monty Cook Games. I had backed something and I was like, oh, let me go, and I got an email. I'm like, all right, let me go claim the thing, and I ended up like going, oh, there's all this other stuff I haven't gotten yet. 2 boxes of books showed up. Once I finally claimed that, then it's like, okay, I'm going to slow down on what I back from now on.
Yeah, well, and we like right now I'm fascinated with the whole roll-in rights. The roll-in rights weren't really a thing. I don't know how far they go back, but they don't go back 30 years that I know of, and so I'm kind of interested in them and how
what is it?
Roll and write. It's a sort of a game system where you're writing down on a notepad, or you're writing down or a dry erase board aspects of things. One that comes to mind. So there's one called the Cartographers, and I think it has a subtitle, but I can't think of the name of the subtitle. But
are they called journaling games too?
Yeah, maybe. I'm not quite sure if that's the same thing. In this case, like you're trying to, you've got a grid, like a 5x5 or a 6x, well, actually it might even be a 10x10 grid, and you roll dice. I believe there's some way for you to be placing down terrain, and then there's scoring mechanics, scoring cards, where you've got cards, and if you can make a mountain with hills all around it, or if you can put a river going straight across your map area or whatever, you score points for those sorts of things. So that's this roll and write kind of concept, where it's you might have some cards and a board, or one or both, and some sort of a notepad or dry erase pad to kind of.
Now, was it trying to incorporate solo play into your games that got you into that?
Oh,
or
yeah,
was
yeah,
it the
yeah,
other way
yeah.
around?
Yeah, well, and and with COVID and all, I mean, I think that a lot of us have. I mean, COVID and online gaming is great in that it sort of makes it easier for you to find groups and to meet with people and to play, but it's also not the same. But anyway,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people playing games or looking to play games solo more than years back before COVID. And
We
so,
used to always
yeah,
joke
there is
that
something to be said in this being kind of product research. Yeah.
Okay, we were for a while we were joking. The internal joke was, it's a conspiracy between Zoom and Roll20 to get more people playing games and using online. So we are just at the hour mark. Final thoughts before we head on out?
No, I appreciate everybody who's supporting the project and supporting us. For years and years that we've been able to do this, and we really, with the DungeonMorph dice specifically, we're hoping to make a great tool that's useful to you to make it easier for you to design your dungeons or design your adventures, or even make running improv adventures easier and better. Yeah.
Awesome. As always, folks, links are down in the description. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, stay nerdy.
Thank you.